guys, you're here with Miss O'Kaylee in another chapter of Night Will Help You Sleep Tight. We're reading My Fox Ate My Homework, where Jonah moves to a new town and meets a fox that talks to him, and instead of being weirded out, he thinks it's really cool. So let's see what happens with these two. Our next chapter is titled Saturday Morning. I made coffee and bacon for my mom before she woke up. She could barely walk or talk until she had her coffee. And as far as the bacon, well, that was for me. We collected all the eggs that day to take to the farmer's market. Thank you for locking the chicken coop last night, she said before we got there. Have to protect them from wild animals. I nearly choked on a laugh. I couldn't imagine the fox as a wild animal. This our table? My mom asked after we got to the park at the farmer's market. She pointed to one in the middle of dozens of others. Some of the other tables were covered with fruits and vegetables. One had a massage chair next to it with a sign that said it cost $5 for 5 minutes. My first thought was, this is where all the health nuts shop. People were everywhere, wearing jeans and overalls, walking from table to table, talking to each other like they were having the best time of their lives. That place was as crowded as the theme parks in Orlando. Someone blasted country music from a speaker overhead. I could smell some hamburgers being grilled from a booth farther down the park. This place was awesome. Put those right there, my mom said. She was pointing to the middle of our table. I knew she was talking about the eggs we had hauled there. Our arms were full of cartons that were cut in half. Good morning, y'all, said an old guy wearing a straw hat and staring at the eggs. He had a strong country accent. Glad y'all could join us. My name is Jim Bob. My mom wiped her hands on her pants. Hi, Jim Bob. We're happy to be here. My name is Julie, and this is my son, Jonah. Call me Joe, I said to him right away. He gave me a weird look, shook his head, laughed, and pointed to the eggs. How much? It's $6 for half a dozen eggs, my mom said proudly. Mr. Bob whistled. That's too rich for my blood. I can get a whole dozen at the grocery store for half that price. My mom crossed her arms. You're right, Jim Bob, but the chickens that laid the eggs you get at the grocery store were raised on an overcrowded ranch. They were stressed out all the time. They may have ingested pesticides and ate each other's poop. Mr. Bob scrunched his face in disgust. I did too. Now, my chickens were raised on a small farm by my grandma, my mom continued. She had fed them every day and talked to them like they were her own children. She put a hand on my back. Those chickens were loved. They're happy. Happy chickens make better tasting eggs. Jim Bob walked away with 24 eggs. That was amazing, Mom. I looked at her with nothing but respect. I hoped I could be like her one day. You've got to teach me how to do that. She took a deep breath and laughed. Don't get used to it. They really are overpriced. She leaned against the table. Your great-grandma never came here to make money. She just wanted to interact with people. I didn't know a lot about my great-grandma, but she seemed pretty cool. I couldn't help but wonder how she survived all those years by selling eggs. She never had a job, and my great-grandfather passed away long before I was born. How did she do it? I asked my mom. How'd she do what? How'd she live without any money? I wondered aloud. She left this world without a penny to her name. My mom shrugged her shoulders. I'm sure she had government assistance, and your great-grandfather Ray made sure she was taken care of before he passed away. An elderly couple stepped up to our table and smiled. What do we have here? The woman asked. Her hair was gray in the front, and the rest of it was brown. The man with her was bald, with a long gray mustache and bushy gray eyebrows. Don't be silly, the old man told the woman. I'd know these eggs anywhere. He stared at me and squinted an eye. These are Rita's eggs. What are you doing with them? I had no idea who Rita was or why this guy thought the eggs were hers. He was a lunatic, and I didn't want to deal with it. He scared me. Mom, I said, looking up at her and swallowing hard. My mom laughed. My name is Julie, and this is my son Jonah, she said to the couple. She patted me on the back. Rita was my grandma. Call me Joe, I whispered. Oh, dear child, the old woman said in a comforting voice. I'm so happy to meet you. Your grandma was a wonderful person. She stared at the table for a minute like she was lost in memories. My name is Martha Hunter, she pointed to the man. This is my husband, Jonathan. My mom stepped around the table and shook the couple's hands. Did you know her well? She asked Mrs. Hunter. Mr. Hunter cleared his throat. Are you kidding me? He laughed. The two of them never stopped talking. He looked at me and winked. I had to get a new bottle of aspirin every week. Don't listen to him, his wife said. He's old and bitter. She shook her head and grabbed my mom's hand. I miss her dearly. We must get together and talk sometime. My mom smiled. Thank you. Mr. Hunter grabbed his wife's hand and pulled him on. and pulled on it. Let's keep moving, Martha. The sun is hotter than a bonfire right now. He wiped his forehead. Let these young people work on their tans. I half waved at Mr. Hunter as they walked away. He was scary at first, but overall, he really was a cool guy. My mom patted my pant leg. That meant her cell phone was vibrating. She answered the call and held up a finger to me, signaling she needed a minute. Her conversation went like this. Yeah, okay. She put a palm over the receiver and looked at me. It's Uncle Mike. Something about a job. She took her palm away from the receiver and spoke into it again. Yeah, I'm still here. Just a minute. I loved listening to these kinds of conversations where I could only hear one person. Not. It was like trying to put a puzzle together. All the pieces were there, but they were all the wrong sizes. This is going to take a few minutes, my mom said to me. I need to step away. Can you handle the table? I looked around at all the people at the farmer's market. There had to be hundreds of them. None of them were coming to our table. Yeah, I think I'll be okay. She stepped through the crowd to the other side of the park where there were empty benches. I hoped it was good news for my mom. She loved to work and be around people. Hello, Orlando, some girl said to me. I looked across the table and saw my only friend at school. I thought her name was Melissa. Yeah, that was it. She was the one with big dimples. She gave me a wide grin. Hey, I said, what are you doing there? I was happy to see her, but tried not to show too much excitement. I like to get crazy on the weekends, she said, bobbing her head to the slow country music playing overhead. I laughed because I knew she was kidding. At least, I hoped she was kidding. She frowned like she was hurt and then burst out laughing. Gotcha. I'm glad you're here, I told her with a smile. She smiled back. Are you selling a lot of eggs? I was too embarrassed to tell her we had only sold eggs to one person. We're doing okay, I lied. She shook her head. No, you're not. I shrugged my shoulders like I was confused by what she had said. Everyone who comes here on a regular basis knows these are Rita's eggs. What's that supposed to mean? I asked with my arms crossed. I didn't know my great-grandma very well, but the people around here better not have said anything bad about her. Melissa picked up half a carton of eggs and studied them. Rita always had rotten eggs in her cartons. She thought they were golden eggs, I whispered. Melissa put the carton down. So, did you start on your paper, Mr. Writer? I shook my head. Not yet. I'm working on something big. Can't wait, she said, and clicked her tongue. Do yourself a favor and stay away from Shane. He doesn't do any of his own work. She turned to walk away. Someone has to stand up to him. I had to agree with her. I just wasn't sure if I was the right person to do it. I had never been in a fight, and I wanted to keep it that way. My mom came back to the table with a smile on her face. Okay, so Uncle Mike's job had a position open up, and they want to see me right away. Today, I asked, holding up my hands. She sighed. I hope that's not a problem. It wasn't a problem at all. I had another chance to talk to the fox, and I didn't want to pass that up. But there was one thing I had to do before we left. Those hamburgers smell good, I said, holding my stomach as it growled. I don't know how long we were there, but I had smelled the hamburgers grilling the entire time with spices like garlic and pepper. I could use one too, but I'm not sure we made enough money for that, my mom said, picking up the egg cartons. I was so desperate for a hamburger that I pleaded with her. We made $24. How can it not be enough for 2 hamburgers? My mom smirked and spoke in a very serious voice. People around here are crazy. They charge $6 for half a dozen eggs. She shook her head like it was an unfair price. If they charged for hamburgers the same way, she started to laugh and couldn't finish the sentence, so she tried again. If they charge for hamburgers the same way, then it'll be $6 for a hamburger. She snorted and laughed like she had just told the funniest joke in the world. All I could do was shake my head. Maybe we had been in the sun too long. Alright, so people know they have rotten eggs. That's chapter 6. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon. Sleep well.